We are at the ending of this Super Bowl recap, and then I'll get back to other things that are, you know, different avenues, different sports. I would love to do that. So, football is great and all. Love football, love the game, love doing countdowns for y'all. But at the end of the day, I do want to go into other things and avenues that I know I'm good at. So, but let's close this out. Super Bowl 51. Super Bowl 51 was against New England Patriots and the Atlanta Falcons. It was in Houston at NRG Stadium. I believe it's still called that. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, this was a classic Super Bowls for a big time reason, and that was because it was the largest comeback in Super Bowl history. It was also the first overtime in Super Bowl history, so a lot of narratives here, man. So overall, New England, they came in 14-2. They were third in points for. They were first in points against. They beat Houston 31-16, and they beat Pittsburgh pretty bad in the AFC Championship game 36-17. Atlanta, they came in 11-5. They were first in points for, but they were 27th in points against. They beat Seattle 36-20, and they beat Green Bay 44-21. Smoked them. So Super Bowl time, you're looking at it, you're like, okay, well, who's gonna win? Because New England already has, at this point, they got about what 5 rings by now, something like that, 4 or 5, I believe. Um, so again, they won 49. They were not able to get back to 50, so they're back now. So here's the thing: they were down 28-3, man, 28-3. Atlanta looked like they were clearly going to win this game. They had the MVP in Matt Ryan, but things turned. Definitely things turned from the Dante Hightower play to the Julian Edelman sensational, like exceptional catch that many fans are still wondering like how he did that. It's just insane. They were able to come back from 25 points down, man. And then at the end of that, I mean, let's be honest, they were able to kind of, with time, you could see the progression of New England, the composure, and he's Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. So Tom Brady would win MVP. They would win 34-28. Um, Brady would walk out with 5 Super Bowls and 4 Super Bowl MVPs, which is a record. Deflategate, that died away after this game. I think a lot of people were definitely looking at it from the standpoint of, well, they're just good, and that's just what it is. There's nothing that's helping them win games. There's the cheating scandals and stuff. Like, while it was proven that they had cameras on other teams at one point, they still won the Super Bowl, and there was no evidence about that further. So, overall, this was just a grind out game, patience, and it was one of the biggest chokes of all time. So Atlanta, have they recovered since? Not really. I mean, I'm sure they'll get back to maybe winning football again, but yeah, it's one of those sad things, man, that you just, as a non-Patriot fan, you didn't want to happen, but it did. Super Bowl 52. Super Bowl 52 was another classic, back-to-back classics here to start that 50s Super Bowl era here. This was between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots, which is a rematch of Super Bowl 39, where Donovan McNabb and T.O. were not able to fulfill the completion of the Philadelphia Eagles' success of winning a Super Bowl. Now coming into this game, Eagles at 13-3, shocking a lot of people. Third in points for, fourth in points against. They did have an elite defense this year. I mean, it was stacked. But offensively, MVP candidate Carson Wentz, well, he went down, and as you could see, his career did not pan out after that. But he had a great start to his career. I mean, he was definitely MVP status. Injured his knee really bad. I think he injured it in 3 different places. It was pretty bad. But Nick Foles comes in, back up, and he becomes a star in the making. They beat Atlanta barely 15-10. Julio Jones missing that grab. They could have won that game for sure. And they dominated Minnesota 38-7 with their backup quarterback, Case Keenum. For the New England Patriots, they were 13-3, second in points for, fifth in points against. They took care of Tennessee pretty stoutly, 35-14. And then they really had a pretty good classic game with the Jaguars, 24-20. They were able to beat them and Saxonville. So yeah, New England's trying to repeat. They're trying to get 6 Super Bowls at this point. I mean, what can go wrong? Well, there was some misplays, and the Philadelphia Eagles were just on fire. They were definitely on fire. Both of them offenses was just insane. Defense was definitely not really a thing, even though there's some crucial ones, like the Malcolm Jenkins hit on Brandon Cooks. Philadelphia won this game 41-33 with the MVP going to Nick Foles. I think everyone thought it'd be Tom Brady, which honestly, for a losing team, since Super Bowl V, they didn't even have the MVP be going to a losing team. But the MVP definitely was probably going to be Tom at his age. It was Philly's first Super Bowl, winning 41-33. It was the highest scoring offensive yards there in Super Bowl history, with 1,151 total yards for both teams. The Philly special. It is going to definitely come down as a very, very important play for Philadelphia history. And, I mean, they even have a statue of it, so that obviously was a huge deal for them winning their first. Brandon Graham's strip sack was definitely very important. It was a crucial point of the game, and it got the Philadelphia Eagles in the driver's seat. And Brady at 40, man, he was tearing it up, and he definitely was not slowing down whatsoever. But the Eagles, they managed to win the game. They managed to win their first title and bring Philadelphia from the city of the curse to city of champs. Super Bowl 53. Super Bowl 53 was, well, it was probably one of the most boring Super Bowls that I was able to watch. It was very low scoring. It was a defensive masterpiece from Bill Belichick. But also, it got to see and showcase to the world just how dominant Aaron Donald was and was for his span of his career. Definitely going to Canton for it. Now, Super Bowl 43, it was in Atlanta, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And it was between the New England Patriots that were 11-5 this year. They were not as dominant. 4th in points for, 7th in points against with the McCourty brothers. They beat the LA Chargers 28-41. And they were able to win a thriller, and one of the most exciting AFC Championship games against the Chiefs, 38-31. That was definitely a passing of the torch moment, and it wasn't because Brady was done, but it was because Brady knew that there's going to be a new sheriff in town. There's going to be a new guy to really take his place, and that was Pat Mahomes for sure. They could. The feeling was that was next up, and they were able to get it done and beat that Chiefs team in Arrowhead. The Rams, on the other hand, 13-3, 2nd in points for, 20th in points against. So it was mainly the offense that was kind of rolling with Goff and Todd Gurley at the time. And, I mean, this offense was good, man. They beat Dallas 22-30, and then they beat New Orleans in a very controversial, definitely a game that they should have lost. Clearly, that was PI, and it was bad. New Orleans got robbed of this chance, and we got robbed of a Breeze and Brady Super Bowl, to be honest with you. But they beat New Orleans 26-23 to get to the Super Bowl. It was New England and LA, man, and the score was 13-3. The MVP was Julian Edelman, and the Patriots got their 6th Super Bowl title. The lowest scoring ever Super Bowl in history. It was the first time in Super Bowl history where no touchdowns happened throughout the first 3 quarters. New England's 6th Super Bowl also tied the Pittsburgh Steelers there for the most. Brady's was the oldest quarterback to win a Super Bowl at 41, and Belichick was the oldest coach to win a Super Bowl at 66 years old. Edelman, he was insane with his 10 receptions for 141 yards. And this was honestly one of the most age differential Super Bowls ever, based on starting quarterbacks. Goff was 24, Brady was 41, Belichick was 66, McVay was 33. And veteran and the old guys won over youth and vibrancy at the end of the day. Super Bowl 54 matched up two teams that were on the up and up. For the Chiefs, well, it was Mahomes' time. It was his turn to put on a show for the ages, a Tom Brady esque. And it was Garoppolo's turn to try to get the 49ers to the top of the mountain and for them to tie or actually pass the Pittsburgh Steelers for the most Super Bowls. When looking at it, this was definitely a game of just pure magic in terms of the defense and offensively the receiving core of the Chiefs, really their startup of all of their teams primed. And for the 49ers, obviously, with their really talented roster who featured Deebo Samuel, it just seemed as if this was going to be a 49ers turn of events of dominating the division, dominating the NFC, dominating the league. And Jimmy Garoppolo made a name out of himself. But when looking at it, what really, really stung was the fact that this team had the lead against the Kansas City Chiefs and blew it. The Niners, they came in at 13-3, second points for, eighth in points against. Beat Minnesota 27-10. They beat Green Bay 37-20. For the Chiefs at 12-4, they beat Houston 31-51, but that was having to have a comeback. I believe they were down 24-0 at some point, but again, comeback. And they beat Tennessee 35-24 instead of playing the best team in the league, the Baltimore Ravens. When looking at this game, yeah, there was a lot of twists and turns, but really what changed everything was the wasp play that Patrick Mahomes ran, throwing it to Tyreek wide open. Overall, him and Damian Williams, well, they were able to generate enough offense. Patrick Mahomes leading the charge, and the Chiefs won 31-20, with the MVP going to Pat Mahomes. This was Kansas City's second Super Bowl title, and this was the first championship that they would have in 50 years. Mahomes, again, had arrived. It was a huge representation of LGBTQ as well in this game. Corporate social progressionism absolutely was huge with the commercials. And everyone was definitely involved with the Kaepernick controversy of him kneeling for the national anthem. On top of all that, though, this was just magic. For some, this is not what they wanted. For others, well, this was a good moment. There was no New England Patriots. There was no fear of that. It was just the Chiefs were here, and it seemed like they were going to stay here for a while. Super Bowl 55. Really a weird year, but it really closed out probably in the most epic way possible in terms of the battle matchup that it was going to impose of. It was the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Bucks. But it was more than just the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Bucks. It was the GOAT versus possible young GOAT. This was a huge, huge matchup. This was part two of Mahomes versus Brady. This was definitely going to be very anticipated in such a weird year. During this year, it was COVID-19, so everything was shut down. Everyone was home, unless you were working for the state or, a job that didn't have you stay home. So other people were kind of putting in the work as the NFL still continued to roll on with no fans, and it felt as if it was just preseason or as if it was just not real. Overall, though, they were able to bring fans into the Super Bowl because it was in Tampa Bay, Raymond James Stadium. They kept it obviously similarly small, but it was still a Super Bowl game. For this game, though, this was going to be epic. Kansas City was 14-2, 6th in points for, 10th in points against. Beat Cleveland 22-17, and they beat Buffalo 38-24 to go back to the Super Bowl. This was the Kansas City opportunity to win back-to-back, and they looked primed for it. For the Tampa Bay Bucks, well, they had a long road. Tom Brady definitely pulled them out of that slump that might have cost them the run at the playoffs. They won 11-5, 3rd in points for, 8th in points against. They did have a pretty good defense. They beat Washington in the wild card 31-23. They beat New Orleans 30-20 and sent Drew Brees to retirement. And they beat Green Bay 31-26 in a pretty sloppy way of a fourth quarter, but Brady best Aaron Rodgers, and the rest is history. When looking at this game, you think it's going to be close, you think it's going to be competitive, until you realize that it wasn't. Until you realize that the dominant defense of Tampa Bay was all over Mahomes, with him and no tackles that were able to protect Mahomes enough to even get the ball out. They figured it out, and Tom Brady figured out that he still got it, and Gronk still had it. They teamed up in Tampa, and they won the Super Bowl 31-9. Brady was the MVP once again. Tampa Bay was the first team to play and win the Super Bowl at their home stadium. Tampa Bay won their second Super Bowl after waiting about roughly 18 years. Brady has won 7 at this point, and he won the Super Bowl MVP 5 times. Again, cementing himself as the GOAT and possibly unreachable. Arians was the oldest coach, though, to win the Super Bowl, passing Bill Belichick. He won at 68 years old. And after this, well, we never really got a part 3 of the Mahomes and Brady matchup, and honestly, I wish we did. I just wanted to see what would happen if Mahomes would have bested him, but there's a reason Brady was the GOAT, and until further notice, he's still the GOAT. Super Bowl 56 was taking place in Inglewood in SoFi Stadium in California. This was a pretty random Super Bowl in the timeline of the Chiefs potentially becoming a dynasty, and we just didn't expect it. We probably expected the Rams with their loaded roster and they're all in. Their buy-in of players that were just there for one thing and one thing only, and that was to win a ring. Super Bowl 56 was against the Rams and the Bengals. The Rams 12-5, 7th in points for, 15th in points against. They beat Arizona 34-11. They beat Tampa 30-27 in a thriller. Honestly, thinking of it, it was definitely a crazy game because again, Brady was trying to get to 8. Rams just stopped him enough. Also, Cooper Kupp was just electric. They beat San Fran 17-20 to get to the Super Bowl. For the Bengals, well, they were 10-7. No one expected them to get this far. But they beat Las Vegas 19-26. They stunned the Titans and beat them 19-16. And then, well, they also stunned the 2-time Super Bowl runner-up and champion in the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat them 27-24, and there was even claims of it not being Arrowhead, it being Burrowhead. And that was very controversial, but again, they won. They did what they had to do. They best the Chiefs on this. Overall, this was a super great Super Bowl to watch. And honestly, it should be considered a classic. Definitely Aaron Donald's ability of just dominating, and that Rams pass rush against Joe Burrow and that offensive line that just was not ready. But they still made it close. In the end, the Rams did win 23-20 to the Bengals, and honestly, they won with the biggest play coming from, you guessed it, Aaron Donald. The MVP was Cooper Kupp. Exceptional final drive, Stafford to Kupp the whole time for them to get into the end zone, and yeah, it was a quality drive all the way through. They were able to win it off of that. This was the first 18-week season, so again, the records obviously were different. It's the second consecutive year where a team at home wins the Super Bowl, which honestly had a little bit of some controversy in it. McVay was the youngest head coach to win the Super Bowl. Von Miller, Odell Beckham, Matt Stafford, well, they all won it. 40-year-old Andrew Whitworth, he was the oldest player to win the first Super Bowl, excuse me. And Cooper Kupp, well, he had a triple crown. He had an Offensive Player of the Year and a Super Bowl MVP to him. Honestly, remarkable year and very, very much well deserved, honestly. Overall, the Rams were all in and they got it done. Super Bowl 57 matched up the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles at Glendale, Arizona at the State Farm Stadium. Yeah, this was honestly another really good Super Bowl. It was back and forth, and it was Mahomes with his bad ankle against a gritty Philadelphia Eagles team in Arizona. This was definitely the Kelsey Bowl between Travis and Jason. Again, Mahomes was playing with a really bad ankle. This was actually the first ever time that we had two QBs that were African American, and, well, again, another historical point. Overall, the back and forth concluded, but first, the Kansas City Chiefs, they entered here 14-3, first in points for, 16th in points against. They beat Jacksonville 27-20, and they got their revenge and beat Cincinnati 23-20 to get back to the Super Bowl. For the Eagles, they were 14-3, third in points for, eighth in points against. They beat the Giants 7-38, and then they beat the Niners 7-31, imposing their will into the Super Bowl. The final score was Kansas City winning 38-35, and Mahomes won his MVP for the second time. The Kansas City Chiefs were up to 3 Super Bowls now. There was a controversial end in terms of the pass interference call that happened with Bradbury. I believe it was Bradbury and Juju Smith-Schuster. Andrew Reid got 2 Super Bowls after not being able to win it with the Eagles, and continuous upsets from him, unfortunately. And again, he got to play his old team and beat his old team in the biggest stage. Overall, this was a really, really entertaining Super Bowl. It had a lot of offense, but man, were the Chiefs just a lot better this game, and their offense was flying high. And obviously, this really did hurt Jalen Hurts, as you will know later on down the road. Super Bowl 58 clash between, well, the rematch of the Niners and the Chiefs from Super Bowl 54 came into Super Bowl 58. This time, different QB face in San Fran. For San Fran, they had Brock Purdy come out of nowhere, a 7th round pick that turned into a game manager slash really just a really good quarterback. He was able to have the talent around him. He was able to honestly, you know, come back and play for an offense that was greatly schemed by Shanahan and his crew. And the defense, well, the defense was really good. And the Chiefs, well, they were trying to go back to back. They were trying to get 3 Super Bowls in a span of 5-ish years, I believe. And that was going to be obviously a dynasty in the making. For the Niners, they were 12-5, third in points for and third in points against. They beat Green Bay 24-21, and they beat Detroit 31-34. Both of those games were thrillers, man. Thrillers. For the Kansas City Chiefs, they had a tough year at 11-6, 15th in points for and second in points against. They did beat Miami in the wild card 26-7, took care of Buffalo 27-24, and had a great defensive showout and beat and upset the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore 17-10. Overall, this was the first Super Bowl in Las Vegas, which I failed to mention in previous, you know, cities like Minneapolis and Super Bowl 52 and Indianapolis and Super Bowl 46 and, you know, just teams that and cities that were able to really actually able to host. That was a huge deal, man. The Chiefs won this game 25-22 with the MVP going to Patrick Mahomes, and, well, it was an overtime thriller. The Chiefs dynasty, man. The Chiefs dynasty was here. It was real, and they were back-to-back champs. With the whole world being honestly done with the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chiefs were just loving the high life. Kyle Shanahan's continuous Super Bowl heartbreaks, well, it was tough for him. It was tough for fans of him. It was rough. This was actually the most watched telecast Super Bowl of all time, with 123.4 million views. And again, this was definitely an outstanding Super Bowl with unfortunate circumstances with the Niners not realizing overtime rules and Dre Greenlaw's injury. But the Chiefs, they got it done. They got it back-to-back. All right. And lastly, Super Bowl 59 from the Superdome in New Orleans, facing the Dynasty Chiefs with the obvious goal of being the first ever team to three-peat. Not even Brady's Patriots were able to do it. Against the Philadelphia Eagles, the hungry, and super irritated Jalen Hurts. I know I said in the video that later on it would affect him. Yeah, not negatively at all. It was his motivation to get back there. And what better way to really revenge that performance with being able to play the same team that beat you. The Chiefs and the Eagles, well, two dominant teams in the regular season. The Chiefs were 15-2 with the 15th in points for and 4th in points against. Their defense really did carry this team. They had an exceptional defense. They beat Houston 23-14, and they beat Buffalo 29-32. That was a thriller. That could have went either way. Again, Buffalo falled short again. For the Philadelphia Eagles, they were 14-3. They beat Green Bay 22-10. They beat the Rams 28-22. And, well, they destroyed the Commanders 55-23 instead of playing the anticipated matchup of Detroit versus Philly. For this, once again, Hurts' revenge game, man, because the Philadelphia Eagles came in and they won 40-22. The MVP going to Jalen Hurts. The tush push was almost unstoppable. Their offense was unstoppable. They got to Mahomes so many times, and they rattled that Chiefs offense. The defense just could not stop absolutely anything. The Eagles draft picks really helped, and they won their second Super Bowl. Additions like Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean's impact already was felt from their rookie year. The Chiefs, they failed to three-peat, and there has yet to be a team to do that. Elliott had the most points by a kicker with 16 points in the Super Bowl. Kelsey actually had the most combined catches in the Super Bowl with 35, passing Jerry Rice. And, well, there's nothing without the controversy of halftime with Kendrick Lamar performing in front of Donald Trump and, well, pretty much making it known that, he's not a great person. So, overall, I mean, this was a really good time to be an Eagles fan. Honestly, as much as the score says, I mean, it was pure dominance, 22-40. Those points mostly were in garbage time. The Philadelphia Eagles just had an incredible defense, an incredible team at that. And, well, they got it done against one of the biggest teams in football and really the Brady of the era, Mahomes. So overall, this is how we close it out. I hope that you like and subscribe. I do have more videos coming, so definitely please subscribe. Please have the comments on what was your favorite Super Bowl? What was your favorite Super Bowl moment?